Hey people on YouTube, welcome. In this video we want to build this website for an imaginary accounting and finance firm. Over here we can divide this website into three main sections. We have the header, we also have this side and the account section over here. So the header consists of the navbar with the company's name, SIC for stacking code. That happens to be the name of the company. What a nice coincidence. We also have the list items here. We have the home, the about, and when we hover over them you see the text underline. We also have an account button here which doesn't do anything actually, but don't tell anybody. So when you hover over it, we have a very nice hover effect, a very cool one. We also have this text and the images here describing what the company is about. These buttons over here, more info with some cool hover effect. We have the important links over here. When you hover over them, it also has this cool hover effect, the text underline comes, and some social media icons here. We also have the account section where a user can log in or sign up if they are a new user. So you can see we have here, you can enter your name. Let's say my name is do something. This is my email. Enter some password and we can submit and it goes. Yeah. What if I already have an account? Then I don't have an account, then I don't have to log in. It means I have to create a new account. So I'll sign up. We have the button here to sign up. You click the button and it takes you to the sign up interface. And you can see the text here changes to sign up here. So the interface looks different from that of the login. You can enter your details as well as submit. And if you have account already, then you would have to log in. And it takes you back. And in the login here, we also have the option to log in with the social media accounts we have. So that's what we want to build in this video. And if that's something you're excited about, then I'll encourage you to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more tutorials like this one. And let's get started. I create this folder on my desktop. I call it website demo. You can call it whatever you want to. And I have an images folder inside of it with all the images that we'll be using, from the background to all the images, the social media icons. I also have an index.html file over here which is currently empty, as well as the CSS file. The style sheet is also empty. So I'll open this website demo folder with my code editor, and I'm using Visual Studio Code. So over here I have an index.html which I've already mentioned. So I'll head over to the index.html and create the boilerplate code. Just type exclamation and hit tab, and I'll change the document, the title to website. And after this, I'll link the HTML to the CSS. So we type link, set the href to the style.css, and from here we jump into the body and create a div and give it a class container. Now give the CSS styling for this container div. And before we start, I want to select the entire document and give some styling. We remove all margin, set it to 0, all padding, set it to 0, set box sizing to border box. Now select the container div with a dot, give it a width 100 VW, height 100 VH for viewport height. Give it some background image, a linear gradient, and I want it to incline at an angle of 130, comma, this RGB color code with a comma, because we'll be using this 3 times, and with another comma, it's the same thing. Then we change the alpha value for the middle one to 0.4, and with a comma over here, URL, because we want to link an image, so the image file path, so it's in the images folder, and this is it. I want to use this for the background. And after this, we set background repeat to no repeat, background size to cover, set background position to center, and background attachment to fixed. Now head back to the HTML again and run this code with the VS Code Live Server extension, which I recommend you have. and it doesn't seem to be working, so it means there's a mistake somewhere. Okay, so here after the color, the gradient color, we have to bring a comma before the URL. So when we save, we should have it working now. So head back to the HTML, and in the container div, we'll create another div and give it a class navbar. In this navbar div, we'll create an h1 and give it a text SIC, which is the name of the company. After the h1, we'll create another div and give it a class list account. And this is where we'll have the navbar list item. So we'll create a UL li, and inside of it we'll have an anchor tag. Set the href to a hashtag because it's not going anywhere, and we'll set the text to home. So we'll copy this and paste 4 more times for about, social, contacts, and services.
A few moments later.
And after this UL, we'll create a button with the class accounts, and the text will be accounts. Now you can see we have this UL and all these things on the website, but you hardly will see anything. So let's add the CSS for it. So over here, we'll start with the navbar. So we'll select the navbar, give it a width 100%, set some display, space between, set some padding, 10 pixels, 5% for left and right. So the 10 pixels is for top and bottom, and 5% for left and right. So now we'll start the H1 inside the navbar. So select the navbar H1. Then we'll change the font size. We also give it a font weight 700 to bolden the font. We give it a color and a font family sans serif. So now we'll start the list account div. List account, there's no S. We'll change the display properties for it. So now we'll start the UL. It's inside the list account. I'll give it a gap of 20 pixels. So now we'll start the li inside the UL. Set the list style to none. Give it some padding. 3 pixels left, top and bottom. 7 pixels left and right. Now we save this, and you can see we are getting somewhere. Now the alignment is looking very good now. So let's start the anchor tag inside the li. So select the A tag, set text decoration none. So now let's start the account button. So we'll select the list account. It's the only button, so we can select it by tag name. Give it some padding. So I'll give it some border, 1 pixel solid white, change the color, give it some border radius so that the edges could be rounded. Set the cursor to pointer so that when we hover over it, we'll have a pointer. Increase the font size, the font width, remove the outline, and change the background color to transparent. So now when I save this, you can see the alignment is looking okay now, but we do not have the hover effect. So let's add the hover effect for the button and also for the list items. So for the list items, we'll select it again, colon hover. When we hover over it, we'll change the text decoration to underline. We want to set the text decoration color to width. When I save this, now when we hover over it, you see that we have the text underline over here, but it's way too close to the list item, to the text, so we want it to be a little further apart from it. So with that, we set the text underline offset. Text underline offset, we give it a figure, so let's say 5 pixels. Let's see how it looks. Now it's a little far away from the text, and that's exactly what we want. So let's add that for the account now. So for the account, the button, we select it again, hover. When we hover over it, we'll change the background color to this RGB color code. We'll change the text color, it will be white. Now when we hover over it, you will see that the background color changes and the text color as well changes, but it's very swift. We want it to take some delay, so for that we'll add some transition. In the button, we add a transition. It will be all 0.5 seconds. It should ease in out. So now it takes some time. I think the 0.5 seconds is way too much. It should be 0.2. And I think this is okay. But since the color looks too sharp, so let's add some alpha value over here. Say 0.4. Yeah, it should look okay. So now we are technically done with the navbar section of this video. So let's take this side, this text and the image. Let's add this side, then we can move to the account section. So in the HTML, after the closing navbar div, we want to create another div and give it a class page content. And in this page content div, we'll create an h2, and the text is, we take care of this is the first line. We paste it here, and after this we'll create an h3 header, and the text is this one, accounting and finance need. And after this h3, I'll link an img image file path, so the all text can be. And after this image, I want to create a div with the class buttons, and this is where we have the buttons over here, more info and contact. So inside of it, we'll create two buttons. The first one with the class more, and the text is more info. The second one is with the class the contact, and the text is contact us. This one is lowercase. And when I run this, it seems the page content is unfortunately inside the navbar. So I'll take it from here. So this is exactly what we want. So let's add the CSS styling. So we'll start with the page content div. So select page content. Set the width to 100%. We set a padding for it for all the four sides starting from the top, and give it a relative position so that we can absolutely position a child element, which is going to be the registration page. So now we'll start the h2. It's inside the page content. In family, we'll remove the first one. So now let's start the h3. We'll change the font size to 2rem. Use the same font family, so I'll remove the first one. And when I save this, now you can see the color is okay for it. So now start the image. If you're using a different image, your styling might be different. Mine is too far away from the edge, so I want to bring it a little back. And for that, I'll give it a negative margin so that it can move a little bit. Now I want to style the buttons, and it's in the div with the class buttons. Page content. Give it a margin to the top. Now style the buttons inside of it. Give it some padding. So as always, we change the font size, give it some margin to the right, give it a border, give it some border radius so that the corners can be rounded, set cursor to pointer, and the text color is white. The background color should be transparent. Now it's looking okay. So now let's add the hover effect so that when we hover over it, the background color will change. So over here, we'll select the buttons again, colon hover. When we hover over it, we'll change the border color, dash color to orange, as well as the text color, orange, and the background color to this RGB color code. Now we want to give it some delay. We don't want it to be that sharp, so it should take some delay. Transition, or should be 0.3 seconds. That's 300 milliseconds. It should ease in out. When we save, it should work now. So when we hover over it, you see it takes some delay and the color changes. Now we are done with this site, so let's move to the account section to create the registration page. So here, after the closing buttons div, we'll create a div and give it a class form account. In this div, we'll create a form. You can set the action to a hashtag since it's not going anywhere. And in this form, we'll create one div and give it a class form heading. In this one, we'll first create an h2 and give it a class form header. And we'll set the text to login here. And after the h2, we'll create a paragraph text. And inside of it, we'll create some HTML entity. So you press ampersand DARR and a semicolon. This HTML entity is what we have here, the down pointing arrow over here. So let's add the CSS styling for this. So over here, we'll select the form account div. We'll set width and height. So now let's style the form inside the form account div. We give it some padding. So we set the margin to 320 pixels, increase the height, give it some margin, set the position to relative, we change the background color, and we set overflow to hidden so that anything that overflows it will not be seen. We also give it this border radius to round the corners. Now let's give it some box shadow. We'll set the vertical and the horizontal displacement 2 pixels and set the blur effect to 2 pixels and let it spread -1, and the color is white. So we'll bring a comma and copy this one and paste again and change the displacements to negative, but the blur effect will remain positive. Now you can see we have the form over here with this text, the header, and also the HTML entity. So let's style it so that it looks perfect. So let's select the form heading div and we'll give these stylings. This is the styling we have for it. The border button right radius and the border button left radius are the border radiuses we have at the down here. So the left and right at the bottom. That's what it means. So now in the form heading, we want to select the H2, the form heading H2. Give it some. We'll set the color, the text color, to this RGB color code, which is black. Now let's style the paragraph text, which is the HTML entity. It's also in the form head, the paragraph. Set the display to display inline block. Now it's looking okay. But you can tell this is not where we want this form to be. We want it to be somewhere at the right over here. So in the form account, we'll give it a position absolute. the top will be 15%, and right will be 12%. Now you can see it's well positioned. Now let's add the form input in the HTML. So after the form heading div, we'll create another div and give it a class form input. In this one, we'll create an input with a type text, set the name to first name, make this a lowercase, and the ID is first name as well. We'll give it a placeholder, enter first name. So we'll copy this and paste for last name, email, and password. Enter last name. And for the email, type will be email, name will be email, ID will be email, this will be email. And the next one is password, so the type will be password. Set the name to pass. The ID is also pass. And the placeholder is enter password. And after this, we'll create one for date. We'll change the type from text to date. And the name is DOB for date of birth, and the ID too. And after this, we'll create an anchor tag with a class forget pass. Forget pass. You can set the href to a hashtag, and the text will be forget password. And after this, we'll create a button with a class sign in BTN, and the text will be login. When I run this, you see we have these input fields inside the form. So let's start it. So we'll start with the form input div, and it's inside the form account. We'll give it this CSS style and set the width to 90%. Set the margin auto, give it some margin to the top, and also set position absolute and top 0. So now let's start the inputs inside this div. We'll select form input, the actual inputs inside of it. We'll set display block so that we can apply width and height on it. So we give it this styling, which I believe you already know by now. But we give it a border. We remove all the borders, but we put a border at the bottom, which is 2 pixels solid, and the color is white. And we give it a transparent background color. Now you can see what we have so far. But you realize that the placeholder is not showing very well, so we want to style the placeholder. So we'll select the input, or the input column placeholder. We change the text color to white. Now you can see it looks good. But you can see now the inputs are way closer to the top. So over here, let's change this 0 to 10 pixels for the meantime. Even though we'll change it back for now. So now let's start the forget pass BTN. So it's inside the form input. We set display block. So we set margin auto so that it will be centered left to right. We give it some margin to the bottom. We give it a text color of this RGB color code. If you look, you realize that there is a text here after the forget password. We have this text already have account, but I think I forgot to mention that over here. So in a span, we add that. In a span tag, say already have account. So now let's style the span we just added. It's in the form input. Change the display to inline block. So now let's style the button. So form input button. We set cursor to pointer. So this is the CSS for the button. So when we save this, you see we have this here. The text is also here as well. So now we are done with the sign up page. So let's go to the login. Let's create the login page. So over here, before the closing form tag, we want to create a div and give it a class form login. And it's inside this div that will have the login page. So as usual, we'll create an input. The type is text. We give the name, full name, and the ID, full name, and we'll give it a placeholder. Enter full name. Since this is where we log in, we don't need first name and last name. We just need full name. So we'll copy it and paste for email and password. So we'll change this one, the type to email, and the name is email as well. And over here is email. Okay, we'll change the full name to email as well. And here it will be enter email. And the last one is for password. So we'll change the type to password. In the login page, we also need the forget password and this text over here, but that would be don't have account, and we also need the button over here. So what we'll do is that we'll copy it from here, this one, the anchor tag, from the anchor tag to the button. We'll copy it and paste it here. Now over here you can see we have the login page overlapping the sign up page. So in the CSS, in the form input, we'll set display to none for the time being. So now we can see it clearly. So let's start this in the CSS. So now let's start styling with the form login div, which is inside the account. We'll set the padding to 1 pixels. So now let's style the input inside the form login div. And for that, we'll just copy the stylings for this one, the one we have for the sign up. We can technically change this one, the form input, to the main div, which is the form account, so that both of them will inherit the same styling, but it can create a problem in the long run. So I choose to do it the manual way. And after the input, we want to start the placeholder too. Colon placeholder. We set the color to white. We also want to style the anchor tag, which is the forget pass. Dot forget pass. For that too, we can also copy this one. So we can just copy this. And also the span with the text, which we still have to change. So form login span. We copy this one. And now the button. So we select form login button. So copy this one, paste it here. Over here in the HTML, we'll change this text from already have account to don't have account. Don't have account, and we'll change the text here to login to sign up instead of login. So now when you look at the login page, you'll see that we also have these social media icons here. We have the option to log in with the social media icons. So let's fix that in the HTML. So in the HTML, after this button, we want to create a div with the class login social. In this div, we'll create a paragraph tag and we'll give it a text login with. And after this paragraph tag, we'll create another div and give it a class social icon. In it, we'll create an anchor tag, set the href to a hashtag as always, and as the inner text, we'll link an img. We'll link the social media icon. So we'll start with the X icon, just put anything at the alt text. So we'll copy this a tag for Facebook and Instagram. Now let's give the CSS styling. We'll start with the login socials div. Width is 100%. Now let's style the p tag inside of it to increase the font size. Margin top 10 pixels. Now let's select the social icons div inside the login social. Set the margin top 10 pixels. We set the padding left to 5 rems and the width 100%. So now let's select the images inside and give the CSS styling. So social icon, img. We'll set the width to 35%, 35 pixels, sorry. Height 35 pixels. Padding 5 pixels. The height is 35. Border radius is 50%. Set cursor pointer. Background color. We set margin 0. And this is pixels. When I save, we have this. So let's give it some margin. So say margin left should be 10 pixels. Now let's remove this over here. The padding left inside the social icons should be 0. So now it is well centered. So now let's add some cover effect, but let's first set the transition. East and north. So select the image, colon hover. We change the background color to this RGB color. So now you see the effect when we hover over it. So now let's add the submit button. So after the form login div, we'll create a button with the class submit btn. And the text is submit. So now let's add the CSS for it. So select it. It's in the form account, the form.submit.btn. We set display block. So this is the CSS for the button. We give it a width of 100% and all these. It also has a hover effect, so let's add it. We first keep transition. So now let's select the button. We give it this RGB color so that when we hover over it, we will have this background color change. So when we save this, you see that we have it here, and when you hover over it, the background color changes and it takes a little delay. But our button has some kind of border radius which we haven't given to it. That's probably because it inherited the border radius from this very button over here, since we didn't use the specific class to select it. So before this one, before the border left radius, this thing, we will remove all border radius. So border radius should be 0. And this should solve the problem. Yes, so this has solved the problem. Now we are technically done with the HTML and CSS for the registration page. So what we are left with is the ability to switch between the login and the sign-in interface. So with that, we'll use some small JavaScript. But before then, let's make some changes in the CSS for the page for the time being. In the form input div, form input in the form account, we have this display to none over here. We'll remove it and set it to display will be auto. So then you can see the pages overlapping. We'll give some translation. We'll translate it on the x-axis. So transform, translate x. So this will be translate x. And it will be negative 310 pixels. And now we'll head into the form. We'll go into the form. We set overflow to hidden, so we'll remove it. And now you can see both the sign up page and the login page side by side. So now we can add the JavaScript. So we'll select this form over here and the button, also this form and the button over here. And we'll also select the text over here. So before the closing body tag, we'll create an opening and closing script tag. And inside of it, we'll write any valid JavaScript here and it will work for this page. So over here, we can write our JavaScript. To start with, let's select the sign up form. So we declare a variable, const sign up form. We are using the camel casing. Query selector, and we are selecting with this class. So with the dot form input, which is this div right here. Next, we'll select the login page. So for that, we can just copy and paste this one and make some changes. Instead of sign up, we'll make it login. And also here, we'll say form login, which is this class we've given to it here. So we'll also select the sign in btn. So for that, we'll change this one. So this is that button with the text login. And let's do it for the login btn. So we'll change this one to login. And also this one to login. But when we copy it and paste, I don't think we didn't change this thing over here. So this should be login. Didn't change the class for it. Now let's select the form header. So we'll change it. This should be form header. Now what we have to do is to set event listener on the login btn and the sign in btn. So let's start with the login btn. So login btn dot add event listener, and it's a click event, so in quotes. And after this click, when the user clicks the button, we want to define an arrow function. Now what we want to do now is to take the login form and change the transform property for it. The login form dot style dot transform should be equal to, in quote, translate x, and that should be negative 350 pixels. And we'll also transform the sign up form, so we can copy this one and paste and make some changes. So instead of login, we'll make it sign up. So sign up form, and we'll translate it back to 0 pixels. You remember in the CSS we have this transform style for it, negative 310 pixels. So we're bringing it back to 0. Then we'll take the form header dot inner HTML should be equal to sign up here. I have to spell this correctly. So when we save this, head over here, see that when we click on this one, it transforms. But since this button is at the wrong position, but we'll settle that later on. So let's do the opposite of what this function does whenever we click the sign in button. So you can copy this and paste again. And just change this one to the sign in btn. So you can copy this one. Then we'll also translate this one back to 0. And this one 330 pixels positive on the x-axis. So when we save this, when we click this, it transforms. When we click this one, it also transforms. And this is exactly what we want. So now we can fix the problem with the button. So now with the issue of the button, we can just cut it from here and put it right before the closing form tag. And by this, it doesn't become part of the login form again. And also over here, we have to change this back to login here, not sign up anymore. So now everything works, and the button is not moving anymore. But you can see we have this problem. This form isn't going out of the box enough. So over here, instead of 300, it should be 330, and that should solve that problem, fix that problem, hopefully. Yeah. So this is all the JavaScript we need for this page. So now you see when we click this, it goes so swift. So let's add some transition inside the HTML, the CSS, and also give some margin to this from the text over here so that it goes away a little from it. So in the form input div, we'll add some transition, 0.3 seconds. So we can copy this one and paste inside here, inside the form login. So now you see it's taking some transition to move in and out. And we also don't want this to appear whenever it's out of the registration page. So here inside the form, we'll set overflow to hidden. Now you don't see it again. When we click, it's slicing. And this is exactly what we want. So now we are left with the last thing to do, which is to create the footer section with these links and also these social media icons here. So here in the HTML, before the closing container tag, we want to create a div and give it a class footer. In this footer div, we'll create another div with a class link. Inside the links, we'll create an A tag, set the href to a hashtag, and set the text to about us. So we'll copy this A tag and paste for privacy policy, contact, social, cookie use, and all these ones. So let's do that.
A few moments later.
And here we are. After the closing link div, we want to create another div and give it a class footer socials. And inside this div, we'll create an anchor tag and set the href to a hashtag. And inside the inner text, we'll link an img, the relative file path, and I'll use one of the social media icons. You can remove the alt bar, set it to icon. So we can copy this and paste for the other three icons. So here we are, and I did that for Facebook, X, and also Pinterest. So here we'll start the styling with the footer div. Set display flex. Align item center, justify content space between. We give it some padding, 3 pixels top and bottom, 5% left and right. We also give it some margin left, 1.5 rem. Now let's start all the A tags inside the footer div. So footer, their anchor tags. We set display inline block. We also give it some background color, and we also give it a font style oblique, which is the only property here we've never used so far in this video. This over here should be a text color, not background color. When we save this, say we have this here, and the text is here, you hardly will see it. But the images are way too big. This is the text. So let's start the images. So we'll select the footer socials div, and we'll select the img inside of it. So yes, the styling is straight away. We'll set the width and height. So give the same height as width and apply 50% border radius, so that will make it circular. So when we save this, now you can see everything is working very fine, and all this is well arranged. So what is left is for us to add the hover effect, so that when we hover over this one, the links, there will be an underline. But before that, I will add some transition. You can copy this one for the link too. So we'll select the image again, colon hover. We'll change the background color to this RGB color code. And also for the links, we'll select it again, colon hover. We'll set the color to white and set text decoration to underline. We'll take this space from here. So when we save, we should have everything working. When we hover over it, you see the underline, the text underline. When we hover over this one too, you see the background color changes. And everything works for the form. We can click this to switch between the login and the sign up interfaces. When we hover over this, it takes some delay and everything works. When we hover over the list items, you'll see that it has this text underlining. So everything is working as we have demonstrated from the very beginning.
Many months later.
Well, this has been quite a lengthy one, but finally we are here. And folks, this is basically how we've come to the conclusion of this video, how we build this single page website for an imaginary accounting and finance firm using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. If you find any value in this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more tutorials like this one. If you have any questions, please do leave it in the comment section below. Hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.